Hey guys, how's it going? So, I thought I'd make this quick artifact selector tier list and just very quickly talk about what artifacts I'd recommend and why. So obviously there's a bunch of artifacts that you can't choose for this anniversary selector that we're getting. You're not going to be able to choose the limited ones or special things such as like Chatty, for instance. So let's just quickly go over this. So I'll start with the bottom and go up to the top. Okay, the artifacts that aren't bad, I just don't really recommend. You might say like, oh, I have this really specific use for it, but overall, I don't think most people should choose them unless you really know what you're doing and you really want one for a particular reason. But okay, so this tier, this is one character. So I would say at least one character, maybe two, would be utilizing these artifacts. So you have stuff like Rise of Monarchs, some people are trying it out in Airwell or Last Star Crow. Alabastron, that might be like Winter, maybe Para, but not really that much. Circus Fantasia is generally just for ML Lilius, but people have swapped over to stuff like Proof of Valor recently. Cradle of Life, decent for some PvE stuff, good for Ancient Inheritance, but that's kind of it, but it is really useful in Ancient Inheritance. Dux Noctis is pretty much just ML Pavel, but he has other artifacts he uses as well, so maybe I'd even move it down to bad. Etika Scepter, I see it every once in a while in certain mages that are reducing their cooldown that are on the field for a while, but in general, I wouldn't really recommend it, but it's like okay. Goblet of Oath, it's pretty much just for Payra at the moment. You don't really see it used on anyone else. Indestructible Gators, it's pretty much just for Emil Kawazu, I would say, and it's more of a poverty artifact if you don't have Tachi for him. Scroll of Shadows, I've seen it used on some Arias, but that's kind of about it. Shimadra's Staff, you see it used for some of those Maid Chloe teams on someone such as Maid Chloe. Not too much elsewhere at the moment. Spear of a New Dawn, it's basically just for Senya. I don't really think it's worthwhile on either of the other Charlottes overall. Unseen Observer, it's basically just for ML Elena, the extra push, and the souls. Crown of Glory, you see it on like Last Rider Crow, but that's kind of it. You don't really see it elsewhere at the moment, and it's kind of rare. Backhand of the Goddess, they're actually about to let you recall it, but people use it on ML Leica at the moment rather than Book to try and just give that huge damage boost to always kill stuff like Spectre Tenebria, so you don't even have to S2, S3, you could just S3. Snow Crystal, this is pretty much just for Shu at the moment, not really used anywhere else, maybe Holiday Fiend you could say. Stella Harpa, it's pretty much just Rowana. However, people might have swapped from Stella Harpa a little more to something like Idol's Cheer. Sword of Summer Twilight, sometimes used on Ran and Vildred. That's basically it, not really elsewhere, but it is pretty nice on both of them. Time Matter, not used on a whole lot of people just in general. I just think it's an okay artifact used for some PvP, some PvE things, and sometimes people just use it on characters like Zio and other stuff like that. I think we saw it in the World Cup on Zio as well. Samsara Prayer Beads, you can use it on stuff like Apocalypse Ravi, for instance, but it's mainly used on possibly someone like Dark Corvus as well. An okay artifact just overall. Bloodstone, more PvE usage. People used to use it on Counter Landy and stuff like that, but for the most part I would say it's a little more PvE oriented. Ancient Dragon's Legacy, basically just for Lilius, and that's pretty much it, just for the reduced cooldown thing against Lua, and that's about it. Bloody Rose, mainly used on Zio. You don't really see it on any other character at the moment, but the effectiveness boost is pretty great. Little Queen's Huge Crown, you sometimes just see it on certain DPS warriors such as Shu and other things like that when used for specific purposes or versus certain characters like Airwell, for instance, just to pack a punch, a lot of extra damage. It's an okay artifact overall. Celestine, basically just Sharoon, for counter Sharoon in particular, and it's nice on them. Spirit's Breath, I would say just Angel of Light, but that's basically it at the moment, and she has other artifacts you can use. Song of Stars, well, mainly PvE usage, but some people use it on Lua as well to add the target debuff so that the Lilius tech doesn't work with the Mort artifact. Lensonox's Wrath, basically just a Lencia, and that's pretty much it. Durandal, pretty much just Dark Corvus. People used to use it a little bit on Lionheart Survey, but not really. Manica, I see it on characters like Last Piece Karin and stuff like that, for instance, but not used as much as it used to be. Idol's Cheer, I said that before, but mainly for Rowana. I've seen it used on other Soul Weavers. It kind of depends what you want to do. You can do silly comps with it too. Good artifacts. So these are artifacts that I would say are just overall pretty damn strong and really nice to use, but with some caveats, right? I would say they're more usable for more characters than the other ones, but they might not be the best all the time. So for instance, Misha, this is a great artifact, but you kind of need it close to max to really be able to use it, and even then, there's stuff like Guiding Light that's so unbelievably powerful that it's like, how often can you really use Misha? That's a bit of an issue, but it's nice if you need more copies and you're using it for a particular purpose. Then we have Double-Edged Crescent, mainly used on something like Kayron or Remnant Violet. I would say it's just like a decent artifact. I think this one and Shepherd are, you know, very similar and kind of personal preference, and I see both of them kind of interchanged on some of the same units. But overall, just decent. Merciless Glutton, it can be used on a bunch of different aggressive wars, such as Jacko and stuff like that, but it's just a decent artifact overall. Just nice damage, but nothing really crazy. Rod of Amaryllis is an amazing PvE artifact. I would say most people want it for PvE of some sort. In PvP, it's not used as much right now, but people are always using it on stuff like Diane and Amelia, etc. But now Ice Crystal's kind of taken over, but it's a limited artifact. Secret Art Storm Sword. I'd say it's mainly just used for Selene and Emo Selene at the moment, which aren't really amazing characters. It was also used on Winter in the past. It's sometimes used on Tempest Surin, but it's one of those artifacts that kind of comes and goes with the metas, and you know, future characters could use it as well, but not really anything crazy. Holy Sacrifice, it's an artifact where if you have one of it, it kind of sucks, but if you really need more copies, use it on someone like your Arrowell, for instance, to have her survive strays. It could be really useful. I use it on my Ambitious Tyrant. I've seen used on Belian, just a few examples. Lex's Basket, you really don't see as much of it anymore, but I suppose characters like T. Surin right now. Lex's Basket was always a classic powerful artifact, but it's just not as popular. Basically just Tempest Surin and Kisei at the moment, but some people still like it and want to do goofy stuff like Arbor Builder even. Okay, these are great artifacts that I would just say are really strong. They're kind of classics for the most part, used a lot, but I will say I would maybe move Abyssal Crown down one, actually. And the reason why is I think Abyssal Crown is nice, but at the moment it's only really used on someone like Politis, I would say. But just overall, it's one of those artifacts you see all the time just used on different random things. Even Fairy Tale Tenebria can utilize it, and she's actually a pretty decent character at the moment versus some of these Angel Light teams. But anyways, not as popular as before, so I think I'm going to move it down. But let's talk about RNL. I see it used on Peyra. Goblet is also used on Peyra, but it can actually be pretty popular and let you pop off sometimes. It's also amazing on a character like Ran, really powerful. People usually just often want to grab extra copies. I would say things in the Great tab are sometimes you just want an extra copy, just want to max it out, or just Great Artifact in general. Then we have Shepherd of the Hollow. I would say it's better than Decrescent for the most part. More characters can utilize it. You also, if you only have a plus 15 of it, it pretty much has full value, just lower percentage stats overall. And it's also just consistent. It's consistently strong and good. Then I would say Wind Rider. One reason is Wind Rider is hard to get. It's not associated with any character's banner, so you can't just get one when their banner comes around or off of the side story selection. So it makes it kind of hard to get, and it was just traditionally always an amazing thief DPS artifact. Basically every damage dealing thief uses it. I'm currently using it on my Ran, but that's not exactly ideal, but characters like Sid, for instance, loved it. But it's just a really powerful artifact that a lot of people used to grab tons of in the past because it was in such short supply. Now let's go amazing. There's good reasons for these, I'd say. First of all, Elbrus for characters like Belian and Emolandi, etc. Amazing artifact. It's just incredibly good. If you don't have one, I think it's incredibly worthwhile investing in getting one of them at least, right? Especially because some of these characters like Emolandi desperately need it. And when you don't have it, it just kind of is awkward, right? You kind of have to have it to be able to utilize some of these characters at full value unless you're doing something kind of tricky. Then I would say Golden Rose. Golden Rose has become incredibly popular recently. It's used all the time on Lionheart Surmia with these full damage, like destruction set or speed set builds, just huge damage, and this is the lifesteal and adds to damage. But it also has value on characters like Designer Lilibet. It can even be used on Edward, although I would say Sigurd's a little bit better. But just overall, high demand, newer artifact that a lot of people have been wanting a lot of copies of, and especially just to plus 30 them. Now let's talk Sigurd's. Very similar to Golden Rose, except used for a little bit different characters. They're somewhat interchangeable, but Sigurd's is way better for characters like Emil Bologna, for instance, characters that actually scale off of attack. Although, to be fair, characters like Edward are actually better on Sigurd's, I would say, than Golden Rose, because it has more healing in it, and also it increases attack, and characters like Edward actually have okay attack scaling just a bit, and it's better than some of these other characters. But just overall, these two artifacts are so powerful and people always want more and more and they want to max them out, etc. So all in all, I think that's kind of how to explain these. Now, you might choose a artifact that's in the good, or even one character possibly, you know, if it's something you're missing or something a specific character needs. But this is more of just a guidance in terms of, I would say these are kind of like the in popular demand great artifacts that are always worthwhile grabbing because you're probably going to utilize it at some point, and then kind of goes down from there just in how much I think it gives you value to your account, how nice it is to have for specific characters, especially in this current meta, and just how good overall. So anyways, that's about it for my artifact selector tier list. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.